$19,000. That's what someone paid for a lunchbox that originally cost $2.39. The person who bought it knew had no idea what they were holding. In 1954, a steel box was made in a factory and sold in an American department store for $2.39. It had a picture on the front, a man in a cape fighting a giant robot. A child carried it to school every morning for maybe 2 years. Then they outgrew it, and it went into a basement, or a garage, or a yard sale, the way these things do. In 2010, one of those exact boxes sold at auction for $11,865. The best documented sale runs higher still, more than $19,000. For a lunchbox, that's more than 10,000 times what it cost. A collector once put it more plainly than any auctioneer would. For the rarest examples, he said, someone might pay up to 10,000 times the original price. There's almost certainly one of these in your family's history somewhere. That's what makes this story different from every other one we'll tell you. You didn't just see this object. You held it. You felt the handle bite into your fingers on a cold morning. You had no idea what you were carrying. This is what people keep, and the hidden fortune inside vintage lunchboxes. The first thing to understand is that before 1950, the lunchbox wasn't a happy object. Children carried lunch in a paper bag, or in a repurposed tobacco tin, or in a metal pail. The pail in particular carried a meaning. It was a working-class object. It said your family couldn't afford for you to eat a hot meal at school. Nobody was nostalgic about it. Nobody collected it. And then a company that made lamps changed the meaning of the thing entirely. Aladdin Industries was based in Nashville, Tennessee. It made lamps, and it had branched into insulated vacuum bottles and was looking for somewhere new to sell them. In 1950, somebody at Aladdin made a decision that, in retrospect, reorganized a large part of the American childhood. They licensed the image of Hopalong Cassidy, at the time one of the biggest stars on American television, and printed him on a blue and red steel box with a matching thermos tucked inside. In the first year, they sold 600,000 of them at $2.39 each. But the number of boxes isn't the revelation. Hopalong Cassidy was the first television character ever to appear on a licensed lunchbox, and the merchandising explosion that followed was unlike anything American commerce had seen. In that first year alone, Cassidy's image appeared on more than 2,500 products, generating $70 million in sales. That pattern, a character on a product, a child wanting it, a parent buying it, was set on the side of a tin box in 1950. Everything that came after, the action figures, the branded cereal, the Halloween costume of every superhero who's ever existed, traces back to that moment. Between 1950 and 1970, more than 120 million metal lunchboxes were sold in America in more than 450 different designs. One lamp company, one licensing deal, 20 years, 120 million boxes. The thing your mother packed your sandwich in was the leading edge of one of the largest cultural machines of the 20th century. Nobody told you that because nobody knew to. To understand how serious this world is, you have to go to Columbus, Georgia, and walk into a converted tile warehouse built in 1946. Inside, it's the largest lunchbox collection on Earth. Over 5,000 pieces, 3,500 metal lunchboxes, each with its matching thermos. The record's certified by the World Record Academy. It's called, simply, the Lunchbox Museum. It belongs to a man named Alan Woodall Jr. Alan Woodall is in his late 90s. He's been to this building with these boxes nearly every day for 36 years. He started in 1985 at an antique show in Atlanta, where he bought his first 2 boxes, a Green Hornet and a Dick Tracy. He bought those 2 specifically because he'd heard both programs on the radio as a boy, lying on the floor of his grandparents' house. He wasn't buying tin, he was buying back the floor of that house. In 1990, he wrote the book, The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Metal Lunchboxes, republished in 2000. For the people in this world, it's the reference, the thing you check a box against before you spend 4 figures on it. He has a phrase for what he collects. He calls the lunchbox the greatest form of pop art ever made, produced for $2, carried for a couple of years by a child who didn't care, and, he argues, the genuine portable art of an entire American generation. There's a detail here that, once you know it, you can't unsee. Historians who study these objects noticed something about the side panel of a standard metal lunchbox: the proportions. The dimensions of that flat painted rectangle are almost exactly the dimensions of a mid-century television screen. That's not a coincidence. The artists at these companies weren't decorating a box. They were putting a second television screen on the side of it and handing it to a child to carry into a room that didn't have a television. The cafeteria, the playground, the school bus. The lunchbox was how television walked into the parts of childhood the television couldn't reach. Because by the late 1950s, this had become a war. 2 companies ran the Golden Age, and they ran it as direct combat. Aladdin of Nashville on one side, King Sealy Thermos on the other. Every major property of the era became territory to be fought over and locked down. Aladdin held Disney, Marvel, and Star Trek. King Sealy held the Hanna-Barbera characters, including the Flintstones and later Star Wars. From 1953 onward, both companies were doing full-color lithography directly onto steel, employing artists whose names almost nobody recorded, producing what is arguably the highest volume original commercial art program in American history. Every September, the box a child chose, or more often the box a child was given, was a public statement. It announced an allegiance as clearly as anything a person posts online today. Cowboy or spaceman, cartoon or superhero. You set it on the cafeteria table and the whole table read it in a second. And then there's the part of this world the rest of us never see at all: the vinyl. Between roughly 1959 and the early 1970s, alongside the metal, there was a second kind of lunchbox. Soft vinyl over board, often shaped like a little handbag, aimed at older children, the ones too cool for a tin box. These were the boxes that carried pop stars instead of cowboys. The Beatles, the Monkees. Here's the strange thing about vinyl. It doesn't survive. The material itself degrades over decades. It cracks, it goes brittle. It comes apart at the seams from the simple passage of time, which means a vinyl lunchbox in genuinely excellent condition is now one of the rarest things in the entire field. Not because few were made, but because almost none lasted. There's a 1965 Beatles vinyl box made by Aladdin. One of them is in the Smithsonian. Every world we go inside has a fault line running under it. This one has 2, and they cross. The first is the question of how the Golden Age actually ended. There's an official story, and almost everyone repeats it, and it goes like this. In the early 1970s, in Florida, a group of parents began to campaign against the metal lunchbox. Their argument was simple and physical. Children, they said, were swinging them. A steel box with a hard edge held by a handle is a weapon, and children were using it as one on each other. The campaign reached Florida's legislature. Florida acted. Other states followed. The manufacturers, facing a patchwork of bans, switched to plastic. And the last mass-produced metal lunchbox in America rolled off the line in 1985 with Rambo on the front. The metal era, in that telling, ends with Sylvester Stallone and a parents' committee in Florida. There's only one problem with that story. Historians who went looking for the actual legislation, the actual law that banned the metal lunchbox in Florida's statute books, couldn't find it. It doesn't appear to be there. Nobody's produced the bill. The most famous fact about the death of the lunchbox may be a thing that everyone knows, and nobody can prove. The likelier explanation is much more boring and somehow worse. Plastic had simply become cheaper to manufacture. There may have been no dramatic ban, no committee of angry parents who changed a law, just a line on a cost sheet in a manufacturer's office, where steel stopped making sense and plastic started. An entire era of American childhood art may have ended not with a controversy, but with an accountant being correct. The community holds both versions at once, the good story and the true story, sitting next to each other on the shelf, and nobody entirely able to give up the good one. The second fault line is quieter, and it never closes. It's the problem of fakes. Reproductions exist. Some are sold honestly as reproductions, some aren't. And because the value of these objects is driven almost entirely by condition, the temptation to improve a box is enormous, and it's fatal. The first rule of this community is the one that sounds backwards to everyone outside it. Never restore, never repaint, never touch up. A lunchbox that's been repainted even beautifully, even invisibly, loses most of its value the instant a serious collector sees the work. The originality is the value. A faded, honest box is worth many times a perfect repainted one. Condition runs everything. A mint example can be worth 10 or 20 times the same box in played-with shape. And the most extreme version of this is the box that was made and never used at all. Collectors call it new old stock, and when it surfaces, the room pays attention. So here's the money, laid out plainly. A common plastic box from the 1980s, the kind that's in a lot of attics right now, is worth very little today. A standard metal box from the Golden Age, played with, dented, honest, runs from the low tens into the low hundreds, depending on the title. Then it climbs. A 1963 Jetsons dome top box with its thermos in mint condition reaches up toward $1,700. A 1957 box featuring Toppy the Elephant, the mascot of a regional Ohio grocery chain promotion, with only a handful of examples known to exist, sold for several $1,000s. A Beatles yellow submarine box from 1968 has reached over $3,000 at heritage auctions. And at the very top, the 1954 Superman box, the one we mentioned at the beginning, the man and the robot, sold at public auction in 2010 for $11,865, valued, mint, in the range of $13,000 to $16,500, with one figure on record, not yet independently confirmed, of more than $19,000. For a tin box that cost $2.39, it's not the single largest number we have ever shown you. It's the largest multiple, 10,000 times. And every person watching this has, at some point, held the thing. There's a detail from the Smithsonian that says everything. When the National Museum of American History acquired 20 boxes from Alan Woodall for its permanent collection, the curators didn't ask for the mint ones. They asked specifically for the boxes with the wear, the dents, the scratches, the ones with the child's name scratched into the metal. They wanted those on purpose, because a name scratched inside a lid doesn't lower the historical value of the object. It is the historical value of the object. It's proof that the thing was used by a specific person who is now somebody's grandparent, or nobody at all. The Smithsonian now holds more than 240 of these. A curator called them simply time capsules. Woodall says that when people walk into his museum, some of them cry. He's opened a Lone Ranger box and said you can still smell the peanut butter and the bananas that were in it decades ago. He says of that box that it made some little kid very happy. Think about what the lunchbox actually was. For the 35 years, it was made of metal. It was how a child told the world who they were. Before you could speak for yourself, before you chose anything else about your life, you were handed an object with a picture on it, and you carried it into a room full of other children every single morning, and they all read it, and you read theirs. Superman or the Beatles, the Flintstones or the Jetsons, a spaceman or a cowboy. It was the first public declaration of identity most people ever made, and it weighed something. You felt it in your hand the whole walk to school. Then plastic replaced metal, and not long after, the backpack swallowed the box whole, and that daily declaration moved somewhere else. Eventually, it moved onto screens. But a profile is weightless. It has no handle. It doesn't bite into your fingers on a cold morning. Nobody'll scratch their name inside it and have a museum want it in 80 years because of the scratch. A small number of mostly older adults are now spending real money to buy that weight back. One man in Georgia has spent 40 years gathering 5,000 of them into a building, and he goes there nearly every day, and he's in his late 90s. The Smithsonian asked for the scratched ones, not the perfect ones, because the scratch is where the child was. What people keep discovers worlds like this one, a different object, a different community, a different story hiding in plain sight, because some things are worth keeping.